And the recording is on. So welcome everyone to SQL Friday. This is SQL Friday number 14, and I'm doing my part of it from Gothenburg, where I'm visiting a pre-con for the SQL Saturday Gothenburg, which is like the first in-person event I visited for ages. It's a small one. It's nice to actually see people in person. Our star of the day is Neil Hambly, who is going to present Azure Notebooks Data Science Fundamentals. It works as usual. The session or the presentation is being recorded. It's going to come up on YouTube and on SQLFriday.net later on. If you have any questions, please don't unmute yourself and just ask them, because with a lot of people that could be a bit messy. So please post questions into the chat and I will interrupt Neil for you and give him the questions. So I'm not going to say much more. The stage is all yours, Niels. It's really nice having you here. Thanks for taking the time to teach us about some data science stuff.
Excellent. Can you guys hear me okay? I'm just going to do a quick sound check and a video check. Make sure you guys can see me. And let me just get my screen up on the window there. Okay. So good morning, everyone, or good afternoon or good evening, no matter what time of day. And if you're watching this recording, why did you not join us live? So let me do a quick introduction to myself. I'm Neil Hambly. I've been working with data technologies for 20 plus years. We'll kind of cap it at the 20 plus one there. And I'm running my own kind of business consultancy now called Business Intelligence. And mostly what I do today is provide training. I'm also a certified trainer, and I do deliveries of training courses around data technologies, including ones like machine learning, data science, and I've been doing a number of those for the Microsoft workshops at the Reactor spaces, both online and in person. So for in person in London, online I've done them for London, Tel Aviv, and a couple of others. I can't remember the locations now, but they're all about how to get into data science, how to start your journey on learning about these technologies. So what we're going to do today is focus in on the resources that you can get hold of, how you get started. So what are the environments, what are the technologies we can leverage to start that journey? And then we'll have a kind of a little bit of a look at some of the steps you're going to do in that process. And I will also say that I've got a data science and AI workshop. Well, it's a half-day session at the PASS Summit later, and I'll give you some details about what that's going to be. Let me just move off my screen into that window. I have many different screens here. I've got a kind of big studio, well, a small studio, but kind of designed for doing virtual training. So I'm going to start off with a quick high-level view of the technologies that we're going to spend some time with. And I'm going to take you first to a GitHub repository, which is the Microsoft Reactor space. So let me go and find which one of these it was. Here we go. I did have it here a bit, and I just kind of moved the folders around, and I've lost the location of it. So let me just find it again. Okay, here we have the reactors. Nope, that's not the one I want. Okay, let me just bring it up on the window here. So reactors. Now I've got a oops, can't spell reactors. I've got a not doing it very well today now. Let me go and bring my collection up, because that's probably the simplest way of doing this. So I'm going to go down to my reactors collection and start with a zoom in on some of the workshops that I've done for Microsoft. Now, I did a number of these over kind of a 4-week period. There was like one different workshop every week for 4 weeks, and I did it for a couple of different locations. But we're going to go and look at the resources that were underpinning this. So what are the GitHub repositories? What are the Jupyter Notebooks? What is a Jupyter Notebook? Where can we access all of this? And we're going to look at some of those and take you through some of the other spaces that you can run this. The reason being, and I'll show you right now, is that what we were using before, which was the Let me go find it. For some reason, my Azure Notebooks. This was something that we were using for quite some time called Notebooks, Azure Notebooks, but they've decided to kill it. And you've only got a few more months. I'm going to just log in and show you. So we can't actually start up new projects there, but I'm going to show you where all of the new places we can go for that is. So let me just grab the high level notebooks. And you'll see that if we go to notebooks.azure.com, which is this URL right at the top, they are now retiring this in literally just over a month's time. So you can probably see at the bottom there, it will say the Azure Notebooks website is going to be retired, which also means you cannot start new projects here. I was going to showcase this today, but in the last week, they've actually removed the ability to create projects on here. But we're going to show you where else you can go and run these notebooks. There's a few different locations. So let me zoom out and click on the Migrate Your Notebooks button. And here it gives us instructions on the different locations, the different services that we're able to run on notebooks. So there's something called Visual Studio Code, which is an awesome free resource you can download from Microsoft, and you can put in the extensions that you need to run the different kind of environments like Python, for example, and machine learning. And there's lots of different extensions, but you can kind of migrate or start your new projects inside of Visual Studio Code. So we're going to show you how we do that. But I've got an easier way for you to get started, and this is called Visual Studio Code Spaces. Essentially means you don't need to download and install the Visual Studio. We host that resource for you in a web browser. So it's basically Visual Studio Code, but webinized, and we can go and use those. Now, one of the great purposes of that is if we go and look at the GitHub now, which we're going to just do, there's a little button on there that says clone into the code spaces. So we're going to show you what that looks like. So let me go and grab a couple of these windows. So just going to open up a new window here. And I'm going to go to github.com/Microsoft/reactors. So I'm just going to get that URL. I'm just going to put that URL into the chat window for you as well. So let me go and see if we can kind of remind myself how to get to the chat window when I've already got it minimized. Let me just grab that out of the way. Here we go. Get that and move that over there. Get the chat window up and post that in. Good to see so many of you joining us. We've got a lot of people online this morning, so awesome. And by the way, questions, do put them into the chat window, and I will keep an eye on that and come back to that. But here we have the Microsoft Reactors. There's the URL at the top there. Paste that in. I put it into the chat window, and this takes you to the content or the kind of GitHub repository for all of the workspace kind of workshops that they do rather at the Reactor Spaces. And some of those are the data science ones. And these are the ones that I've been delivering over the last 5 or 6 months for them. So what we're going to do is we're going to go and actually look at some of the resources here. And if I jump into, oh, wrong one, Neil. There we go, online, and then we've got data science and machine learning. And we've got a number of data science and machine learning related kind of folders here. And inside of those, we'll have a number of Jupyter Notebooks. That is notebooks that are part code, part kind of instruction and images that we can use to walk away through. So we're going to look at some of the basics of those today. But what I want to show you, if I go back to the main Reactors page, we have the ability to click the drop down button here. And in there, we have this open with code spaces. So it's a very easy click on the, go to the GitHub repository, click down the code, click on open with code spaces, and that is then going to open that repository. Now I've already just done that, and I did that about half an hour ago just to prep up, and I already had that ready to go, and I'm just going to click on that and it's going to open up. Now it would have taken a few minutes for this to supervision, so that's why I did it a bit earlier. Takes about 10 minutes maybe to completely clone everything out. But what I have now in here is all of the folders on the left hand side, and I've got the different, like data science 1, data science 2, the different folders here, which gives us the access to the different kind of, projects essentially that we would have done in the Visual Studio or Azure Notebooks. So here we've already got this done for us, and it's a lot simpler, and I do like the way that we kind of navigated over to this. So what I'm going to do is just open up one of those entries there and go down to Python notebook. Now what we're not going to do is spend a great deal of time going through each of these notebooks. I want to show you a lot of the real estate that's available, and also we're going to look at something called the Azure Machine Learning Service, AMLS. And I'm going to show you how we can host notebooks in there, but also we've got a number of other tools and techniques to make your life really easy, like AutoML for projects. So we're actually going to kick off an AutoML. We'll see if we can kind of get that done in time, but we'll start the process at least and show you how easy that is. But here I'm just going to click on the Python notebook and waiting for that to kind of load and get rid of a couple of the earlier README files. And I was waiting for that to come up. Here we are. Oh yes, installed. I forgot I just installed it, so I need to just click on a couple of yeses. There's you can see now in the background it's just going in, kind of installing some additional IPython Python packages just to kind of get the interface up and running, but it prompts you for all of these in the bottom of your screen if it doesn't have the resources. So it's very intuitive, very easy to set up. We'll kind of wait for that to set up, and I'll come back and look at the running this specific Reactor notebook or this Jupyter notebook in this code space in a moment or two. Let's go look at the Azure ML Service. So if you're familiar with Azure, there's something called the Azure Ml Portal. So we're going to launch that up. Now to create this, I went in and I created a resource under the Azure ML for machine learning. I filled in the blade with the information that we needed and gave it a name. So I think AMLS WEU AI 100, something like that. I can give it a name. And then the one thing that you will need to do, choose enterprise. The reason being, there's a couple of versions differences, but the one that we want you to do is there's something called AutoML Designer, and the notebooks we want to use the enterprise because it has that functionality. So choose the enterprise. There's a little bit of a cost in there, but we're talking pennies instead of pounds really it just costs you maybe £1 a day, if that. It depends on how big the VMs that you set up as compute will actually run and how long you run them for. The environment itself is completely free. You won't need to pay for the environment. You pay for the size of the compute that you're running, so the size of the VM. Okay, so I would do view and create, and that would go off and create that resource. It would take maybe 2 minutes to create the resource. Once it's done, you'll have logged into it, you'll have this environment. So Azure Machine Learning Service. And in here, as I can show you, we have a number of authoring environments. Notebooks, which is what we're going to focus on today. But I will have a look at the automated ML, show you a quick kind of automated ML project. I'm going to kick that off very quickly as well, but I need to create a cluster for that, and I'll show you how easy and simple it is to do that. And then we have the designer, which is like a code-free visual kind of interface for connecting that, and we have some demos samples in there, and we can click one of those off as well. But you notice in there I've downloaded and created a folder called DS1, and in there I actually thought I created them inside of that folder, but I've created them outside. Python 1, which is a Jupyter notebook. So I'm just going to minimize that a little bit, and you can see we have our Jupyter notebook, and I can just go and run this code directly inside of this environment, and shift enter just to navigate through some of these steps, and I can go and run these different Python Jupyter steps as I go. I also have the ability to switch in between different Jupyter kernels as well. So maybe my Python 3.6 Azure ML is a specific kernel I want to use, or it could be that we want to use a different one, for example, like the R or Python 3. But when we load this, we have the ability to run it what we call inline, which is where you would run it right now, which is inside of the Azure Machine Learning space. But we also have the ability to run it in Jupyter or Jupyter Lab. Now I'm going to show you that we've stepped this up and opened it in Jupyter Lab. Let me just load the latest. I know the file hasn't changed, but I don't know why sometimes that does flag up. Even though the file doesn't change, you get that note sometimes. So here's the Jupyter file. If I go and click on the edit in Jupyter Lab, it's going to jump to a new window, which will be a Jupyter Lab environment. And the reason why I'm showing you this is because if you come down to the very left-hand side, actually, let me expand it first. You have the Azure ML Samples kind of loaded already with inside of that environment. And here you can start going through and starting looking at some sample kind of, Jupyter tutorials. So here we got one that is on the image classification. There's a regression one. We can look at that one as well. We'd have to clone it first. But you notice that there's also a bunch of how to use Azure Machine Learning services and kind of steps to go through how to do automated ML, how to do the kind of different types of classifications or regression or other different algorithms there. So you've got a bunch of good training resources right on your doorstep just by opening up the Jupyter Lab, and you can go and kind of put your own Jupyter files in there. Let's go back to that one and actually just kind of like here you can see I've actually run a couple of them already, and if I go to the next ones and just kind of iterate through, I'm just stepping through the steps here. Now you see there's a combination of code, which is what we're in now, but we also have the markdown, which will be ones like this, which is the instructions. And that can also include visual images and graphs and kind of other instructional information that would be useful for you to understand kind of what it is, what's the step you're trying to do. So if you look at the Jupyter Notebooks that we have available to us, you'll see that those are around, let me just blow myself. Thank you for that. Whenever I start doing a presentation, I need to sneeze. I don't know why. It's like 5 minutes in, it comes every time. It's something in there. Something in there says, I'm going to make you sneeze now because that's something we need to do. Anyway, this is a Jupyter Notebook that we're running. Okay, so we've got loads of these, and I can spend a bunch of time doing that. Now there are the workshops. You can run through all these yourselves. That's why I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time going on these. I want to show you the environments. I'm going to show you where the resources are and help you kind of start that journey. So let's kind of go back to see if our environment has been provisioned. And actually, I think maybe I can do it. I don't know if you can hear that. I have an internal audience here. No, I don't. That's just my little sound box for the claps, etc. But here we go to resource. Now this is where you need to click on this launch button. Ignore the rest of the stuff around it right now. You're going to launch that, and that's going to launch your environment. And here it goes and logs you in with the same credentials. And this is what you get. You get the empty Visual Studio, Azure Machine Learning Studio, I should say, environment. Let's go down. Let's look at documentation. So if we go down here, there is some good documentation about how it all works. That's good. But we can go read it ourselves, Neil. That's fine. But let's go look at tutorials. Let's look at all the tutorials that we have here. So here you can see that we have a complete set of tutorials about how to do our projects, including automated ML, training your first model. And if I look through the designer, you'll see there's a whole bunch of samples already kind of built into this. So we can go and click on some of these samples, and let's just go and grab one very quickly. all I've done is clicked on it, and it's now going to essentially clone this sample out for me. And you can see that it's got, let me kind of clear some of this screen real estate here and tell it I want to run it on this compute. I'm just going to grab a new one. So this is cluster 01. There we go. Leave everything else the same, save, and that's going to be my cluster, my compute that I'm going to run on. Let me just save that. It's creating it right now, but I can then show you the rest of the real estate here. So let me just minimize that a little bit and kind of to show you from the navigator that we have, it's not come up very well there. Let's kind of move that out of the way. Cool. So we have our data sets. We're doing some splitting of the data set. We're doing some featureization, which is kind of working out how to score the kind of filters of the selections. We've then got a couple of different algorithms. We've got our boosted decision tree algorithm. We've got training model. We're doing a whole bunch of different steps in here. So what we're going to do is once that cluster is up, I'm going to click on submit, and that will run that project. That was how simple it was for me to go and create that that sample. So we'll go back and look at that in a moment. You can see that it's currently listed under my kind of training pipeline. And I'm waiting for that cluster to be computed right now. So it's currently done that. So let's go and submit the project. Let me kind of select the compute. Save. I now have my default compute and I've submitted my project. I'm going to give it an experiment name. So I've got the best naming convention ever for doing my experiments. This is experiment 01. So if you need help with your experiment naming, just come and give me a shout and I will help you with that. I have lots of numbers available to me. So
that's perfect. That's just
yeah. But when you get to experiment 57, it's probably a little bit like more difficult to work out which one's which. But you know, I'm good at remembering numbers. So we're going to submit that project now. Now that's going to, I just submitted it. Just wait for that to say that it's running. And then we'll go and look at the other side of the resources I'm going to show you today. So we can see that's now running. Oops. Okay, let's have a quick look. Okay, so it looks like that is now running. Sometimes the research, it kind of changes state a little bit, but that's running. We'll come back and look at that. We'll come back and have some fun with that. Why it's doing that, why we're here, I'm going to go and look at my automated ML and show you how simple this is. Now, I'll tell you what, give me 3 minutes and I'll do an automated ML project for you. Okay, so new automated ML, create data set. I'm going to use my open data set option. I'm going to choose diabetes, click next. Diabetes. Again, awesome naming conventions here. Going to choose that one. Diabetes, by the looks of it, so I can't actually even name stuff correctly. But there we go. So don't let me operate on anyone because I can't even spell the. So this is diabetes. BTs, and actually we're going to do this experiment underscore diabetes underscore 01. Now this is the thing that gets me every time is. Sometimes you're allowed underscores, sometimes you're allowed hyphens, sometimes you're not allowed anything at all. The naming conventions for what you're allowed to name stuff is so all over the place. I often get it completely wrong. But let's see if that's allowing me that. Y is going to be our yes or no, whether they're diabetic or not diabetic. And cluster, well, we just created that a minute ago, so that's good. Here we go. What is it we're doing? Well, we're doing a classification. We're doing this yes, no, kind of are they diabetic or not option. So we're going to use the classification, click finish. All right, so that's now off and running. That was all I need to do to start this automated ML. This will run about 70 different algorithms in the background. Now it's going to take a little while, but what we'll do, we'll come back and look at some of those just before we finish the day. Okay, so when we get to about 10 minutes to the hour, I'll come back and look at this and we'll look at what models it's already kind of processed through, and I'll show you some of the output from that. Okay, but that's off and running. Should be good to go. Let me clear a couple of these screens here. So I have so many of them. Okay, so this is now the Jupyter Notebook that we were looking at earlier. So we opened that up. We were able to kind of import that. But there's also, I don't even notice if those were keen eyes, there was a little samples folder just sitting there. Now what I did is I cloned that samples folder. So there's all our sample notebooks. And in here, we've got lots of tutorials, kind of, again, Jupyter Notebooks, and lots of ways of learning how to do machine learning and kind of your data science projects. Okay, so you can clone that. What you do is you go and pick the folder, either this one or this one, and you click on the clone button, and that will clone it to your own folder. Once you've got it cloned into your own folder, you can then actually go and open up those. So I'm just going to grab one very quickly. Just scroll down under Python, come down to tutorials, and let's go and look at the first ML, and just grab this Jupyter Notebook. So it's got the IPYNB extension. Click on it, and this is where we have the ability to kind of then either roll it right where it is. So kind of run this right now. So I'm just going to actually run this. So this is now creating a new kind of workspace for us. Now sometimes you get this, oh, failure to load because I haven't signed in. It's the first time I'm signing in. So I'm going to grab the code. So grab that to code number. Click on the link. Need to put the code in. I need to click there. I'm going to also have to validate as well that I want to do it with, let me just use my my account that I want to use, this one here. And I've now signed in. I can close that window, go back to the Jupyter Notebook there. And if I run this now, and will look like it's running right now. So I've got a number now that's gone on. So we've now created that workspace. Here I'm going to create a experiment folder. So I run this one and it creates a new folder for me that's going to kind of be able to then kind of contain all the files and results of the runs that I'm doing here. Okay, so let's just click that one. And I think that's one running. Did I run that? Okay, let's go down and now run the step here. So I know that it's run, by the way, and this is kind of one kind of, if you get a number in the box to the left, you know that it's run. Sometimes it's like, I find it's a little bit awkward as you can't tell. Sometimes you kind of, it overlays itself and you can't really tell if it's kind of run or not. But here I've run this one. This one's currently running. So notice when we have a kind of blank square to the left, that means we haven't run it, and we can click on this one. And I also have the run commands up here, and I have some kind of operations I can do, the runs or add new cells in, interrupt it, restart it, do a whole bunch of kind of the stuff and edit it. But that's kind of should have run. That's number 7. This one's now going to be where we actually do importing the specific packages that we need to be able to run this project. Okay, so that one's running, and you can see it's got like a little kind of circle that's spinning round. You kind of know once it's done, it goes back to the little triangle to say I'm ready to go. And also you can see that we are kind of, you know, sometimes you get a busy command run up here. So you can see that kind of it says busy right now. So I know that this thing is running. Okay, so a little bit of kind of feedback that there. So you can run all that, but you also have the ability to run kind of all the cells. So I can just load this project and click on that button and be really lazy and just kind of load my project, click on this, go off, watch a couple of YouTube videos, whatever I might want to do, you know, a couple of episodes on Netflix, it might be, you know, that kind of stuff, and then come back and see my experiment. Or I could be a bit more productive and actually do some work somewhere else. But, you know, Choice is yours. And but I'm not going to tell you what you need to do and not to do that. Okay, so that one's running. That one's now done because it's now gone back to idle, and we've got the number. If we come off it, we can see the number, but it's kind of a little bit hard sometimes to tell that that's happened. Okay, let's go down and let's look at the experiment. So now we have the experiment that we've run. So this is code that's running that experiment, similar to what we just did with the Jupyter Notebook Designer. Sorry, with the designer, we've done this again with the Jupyter Notebook. We've run an experiment. Let me go and look at the experiment. So it's going to open up a page that's going to take us directly to that experiment and all the results for that. We're waiting for that to load, giving it a few moments. Seems to be needs a bit of encouragement. Okay, so maybe you need to give it a little bit longer. Sometimes that's a few moments before it comes up. But let's go look at the results there in our studio. So we're going to see that this is kind of the diabetes experiment we were looking at. This is kind of the results there. That's actually a graph bar. That's actually an image that's in there that's been pasted in. But let's go and look at our results. So we also want to run this here, which is going to give us a breakdown of all the metrics that were captured during that run. So that one's run, and we can see that we have understood which is the best run and what is the metric, which is the root mean square error, or RMSE, which is the best way of kind of working out, in this case, this example with this experiment, the best way of working out the accuracy of that model. Okay, we will also want to kind of bring in all of the details for that. So let's go and bring in what's known as the pickle file, which is the model. So this is actually the model that encapsulates all the code and the results of that run. And we can download that. Oops, wrong one. Let me just go back. Go again, clear. Okay, so that was run, and you can see here that we got some steps about how to kind of clean up behind your. So I'm just going to remove the whole project and Jupyter, sorry, the machine learning service after this. So I won't want to do the cleanup right now. But let me go look at that that experiment. So let's see if we can refresh that. And it seems to have a problem with it. So let me go and just look at it directly inside of the machine learning service. So here we have our experiments. On the left-hand side under assets. Let me click on there, and here we can see that diabetes experiment. Just going to load that one up, and here we see that this is the different experiments that currently been run and how well they are succeeded, what they've done, etc. We can see that they didn't take very long to run, a few seconds. Let me just click into one of those. And I'm going to look at some of the metrics that we have. And here we can see this is the metric, I think, recording the one that we were looking at for that best specific example there. So we have some more details we can go and see about this specific experiment. But under the explanations, I need to go and create that explanation, which I don't have done right now. Let me go and come back to this one and grab the where was the experiment? There we go. Model. Oh, wrong one. I think I'm in the right one here. Yes, that is correct. Okay, go back to experiment. Oh, I haven't done it on. I was thinking it was the designer one. It's not. It's the machine learning one. Okay, so let me clear a couple of these screens because I've got too many of these up there now. Okay, let's clear that one down. Oh, by the way, if you need information about how to set up CodeSpace, etc., there's links in the how-to guides for machine learning. You can just go in and just do how to on Visual CodeSpace or CodeSpaces. Lots of options there, but it's very, very straightforward. Let me just connect to that. By the way, there is a timeout on the CodeSpaces, like I think 30 minutes by default. So if you elapse those 30 minutes, you need to go and reconnect. All your stuff will be there. We'll see that in a second. But we're going to look at the Visual Studio Code Space and see the exact same experiments that we just ran in the machine learning service. We can run in Visual Studio Code Space. This will have all of those cloned resources from the Reactors GitHub. So here we can see, let me just go to my project. Oh, wrong one. This is another project I did a while back. Let me get rid of that one. Where's my other visual? Here's the one I'm looking for. Connect. So we cloned from this earlier, but we're going to reconnect to that space. But it's nice that it kind of doesn't need to kind of be around all the time. And one of the advantages is if I'm running this in code space, where's my compute? So Visual Studio Code itself is a resource that is using kind of your own machine because it's installed in your own machine. When you're doing Visual Studio Code Space, you're using a hosted environment. And here we can see all the Jupyter Notebooks. But it hasn't asked me to, so I'd say no thanks to that. It hasn't asked me to spin up any cluster. It's providing a free resource behind the scenes in the code space. Now, it's not massive. It's not a huge box. It's kind of more of a that size box. But be aware if you want to kind of do some training and learning and kind of go through some stuff, then this is an ideal way for doing it because this is very cost effective in that it doesn't cost you anything. And I like cost effective of £0. So question here, Visual Studio Code Space is a managed Visual Studio Code instance on Linux VM in Azure. Did I get this right? Correct. When you set up your VM, your Visual Studio Code Space, you get to choose what type of environment you're hosting it on. And in this case, you would be looking at kind of maybe a 4 gig Linux deployment. Okay, so hopefully that answered the question. But yeah, you get to choose a little bit around the environment type, but it's quite a small sized VM. But there's an Azure Linux version there. Okay, so that is well. If you want to learn more, I'm going to put this link in here into the chat window because this will help you kind of see the different options available. And if you wanted to go do code space, you can come in. So what we've done so far is we have looked at the code space version, but we have the same with Visual Studio Code. But I've used the code space version because it doesn't require you to have Azure Notebook, the Visual Studio Code installed. But you can migrate all your existing Azure Notebook projects into this container. We have the Visual Studio Code Space option. We have the Azure Machine Learning, which is what we're looking right now. And again, we can kind of migrate those projects into that space as well. There's a couple of others. There's the GitHub itself, and there's something called Azure Lab Services, which I won't kind of look at, but essentially it's very similar to a hosted environment. And there's one that they don't have on here, which is Data Science VM, which is an awesome cloned kind of VM that has all of the resources already pre-installed. You spin that up, and actually I won't have time to spin one up. I was going to quickly create one. So I'm going to create a Data Science VM, Data Science Virtual Machine. Oops, I can't spell virtual. I've created a new virtual capability here. So I'm going to do a Data Science VM. Now there's a couple of options here. There's Windows 2016, 2019, and a couple of Linux versions. So let me go with the 2019. It's going to ask for the blade to be filled in. So which resource group, which is the name of the VM itself, you want to name it, etc. And what size do you want it to be? Do you want it really, really small, or do you want it a big one? But I'm going to start with preset configuration. I managed to path that up. There we go. Dev test. Size. I want a DS2 is the size I want. I'm going to create that now. Okay, let's have a look. We want the existing resource group. Let's go with the demos one. data science VM underscore Neil Hambly. Oh, this is the hyphen, not the underscore. One of these days, I will actually remember to do that right the first time. But I will say I've probably done this about 100 times and I get it wrong every single time. So all bets are off whether I actually managed to do that correctly. We're going to go with the data science VM Gen 1. It's going to cost me a whopping £289.99 per month for a DS3. I want a DS2. I'm cheap. But that's kind of 2 CPU, 8 gig of RAM is probably big enough for most of my project. Remember, I can scale this later to a different size if I need to. So I'm going to choose a small one to start with. The D series is nice. Review and create. And oh, I managed to miss something here. Let's have a look at what we missed. Basics. Oh, here we are. Username and password. So we'll do admin, Neil. I will put a password in.
Is it password with a capital P?
Close. I will show you the password. It's kind of the one I use pretty much for all my projects. Training.
Oh, that's a strong one.
Yeah. Really strong one. Not at all. Right. Okay. Now it's a review and create. Because this is going to be up there for about 10 minutes and then it's dying. I will cull it. Although sometimes I forget and it's like 2 days later. I go, oh, got to go remember to clean that resource down. Okay, that's now going to run. When it's loaded, I will go and have a look at that. So just doing the time check. We've got about 17 minutes. That's good. Let's come back. Oh, show that later. Okay. So here's our project running, by the way. Here's some of the runs it's already done. They're about 3-4 minutes sometimes for a run. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to just grab one. I'm going to ask it to be explained. Okay, so I'm going to ask it to explain the model just so I can show you the results of it. Now, it's not the one that's going to be the winner. I know that for sure, but I'm just going to ask it to explain it. So I've chosen the model I want to get explained. I've clicked on explain model, pushed it into the queue. It's now queued up here for that. What will come back and look at that later on and see what the results of that is. So what we will have is a way of looking at the model itself and looking at the details, the metrics, but I want to do some visualization of that data. I do have some metrics already I can show you, but essentially they are not that excited. And let's go to the confusion matrix, maybe add that one in. We can get the cursor to stop moving around. There it goes. And here's my confusion matrix, which I managed to go past again. There we go. Tick that and stay there this time. Okay, it's proven to be difficult today. Okay, there we go. I'll come back to that one. I don't know why it's not allowing me to actually check it because I'm clicking it a few times. There we go, not to worry. We will come back and look at that. But we do have some graphs around some of the metrics here that are kind of visible. But I want to show you kind of what it looks like when it's explained. So we'll come back to the explanation and see this once it's been run. That'll take maybe 5 minutes for that. Let's look at our designer. Do we have that running? So right now we have it running and it's completed. Hey, so let's go and just put some real estate here, and we're going to want to look at the output logs. Go look at the output of the model itself, and you can see how the different algorithms and how the different columns and results of those have been scored. So we kind of have the ability to look at some visualizations around some data. So we start to see more information about the experiments, about the different steps inside of that experiment. We can go and explore all of those. But I might be then happy with the results of that. I'm not, but kind of no. Let's look at the evaluation model step. Wait for the outputs to come up. There we go. We get to the results. And here's the different curves. Here's the confusion matrix. Here's the scoring of those results. If I was happy with that curve and everything was kind of like good, and this was the experiment was successful, I would then create what's known as an inference pipeline. There's actually two options. There's a real-time version and a batch version. And simply to do that, you just click on the one that you want to do. It's going to rearrange that experiment. And also maybe I need to switch it around a little bit. I won't go through all the steps because we do those in other sessions, but just seeing if this is going to load, and I can then click on the submit. So it's now changed it with web output. So I've got kind of some new stuff in there, and just going to click on submit on that. Give it experiment name. So here we go. So I want to use a new one. So we'll call it experiment 02. And we'll run that one off. And that's now going to run that experiment and then create the resources, which is the endpoints and the services that need to be done. So that is essentially, I think that's kind of ready to go. Let's see, submit. Oh, there we already just submitted it. I just need to wait for that to run. So we'll come back and look at that. But that will have created the model, processed the model, looked at the outcome, validated that everything was good, and then we could create a deployment of that into a service. We can then call the service through an endpoint call, like an API call. We can also containerize this and put it in either an Azure container instance or an Azure Kubernetes service, AKS or ACI. You can see here currently it is running. It's kind of it's running through the steps. So this will get to the end, and then we'll basically have that deployed. So let's have a, that one has deployed my data science VM, by the way. Let me go and quickly connect to that. So we're going to use an RDP connection, which is a remote desktop protocol. I'm going to click on the connect button, RDP. Going to say download the file. I'm going to get my RDP connection running here. Open that file, which is going to open up here. Click connect. This is the one thing though, you'll now need to change this to be a different account, and I'm going to use the admin Neil with the password that we typed in earlier. That's really hard to remember. And I'm now going to connect into my VM, and this we're going to let it load up for a few seconds. This has a bunch of pre-installed services that are all around data science kind of projects, but also you can have multiple people working on this same VM. You have a team project service here. So here's all the bunch of Visual Studio Code, Power BI. But if you look at kind of the different machine learning services, AI galleries, we've got a Jupyter lab environment already pre-installed, or Jupyter, I should say, pre-installed there. There's a ton of different items there. It's still stepping itself up, by the way. So don't worry about these windows popping up here. But I would say that this is one of my favorite technology choices. What I can do is I can do a project. I can step up my data science VM. It can be any size I want it to be. When I'm not wanting to work with this project anymore, I just stop it running it. So I'm not charged for it. The next time I want to use the project, I just restart the service. If I want to resize it, I just go and resize it. So I have a large project with a large amount of data. I need a bigger compute. Sure, let me just resize that. So it's really easy to step up, but also you can have multiple people connected into using these services, because at the end of the day, it's just an endpoint that we can connect to as well. It's like a remote desktop protocol, but the services are web endpoints. So we can go and connect to those services. Somebody can create the project, somebody else can manage that project, and this is a cool way of doing that. For some reason, it does start to like, oh, you want to use Teams? Cool. If there's more than one of you, you could also kind of be using Teams inside of this project. I'll look at that a little bit more at the end. We've got 10 minutes to go. Let's go look at where this is not ready yet. What was the other one we were doing? We were doing the diabetes. Let's have a look at this one here. Not that one, so automated ML, rather. This one here. Let's go down. Oh, refresh my experiments. Okay, so there's my diabetes experiment. here's the runs that we have. Let's go and see the models that we are looking at here. Okay. So was it this one? I thought it was this one. Maybe I've got it wrong. Let me go and have a look. Automated ML. Okay, I'm in the right project. Yep, cool. Did I miss something here? Let me go look at my compute. Okay, why am I not seeing the compute there? Okay. This is also a weird thing sometimes that I've created the compute, but I'm not seeing it here. So I have to refresh the screen a little bit.
I have an advice for everyone. If you're hosting a meeting, don't hit the power button on your laptop. So I was gone for a while, but I'm back. Sorry.
So which button is it I'm not supposed to hit? That one. Don't touch that one. Yeah. Okay. For some reason, I'm not seeing it here, which is weird, because I have registered it. Okay. Okay. Let me go check. I'm not running it on a different machine here. Okay. So that's that one. Let me just reload that. Oh, I wasn't running it on there, was I? I was running it on the Jupyter Lab environment. Let me clear a couple of these screens so that they're getting confusing. Okay. So let me go have a look at where we were with that Data Science VM. Don't need that anymore. Let me go back to my home page. Here's the project. Oh, that one's that project, and this one is this one. Okay. So let's refresh. Okay. I thought I'd done an experiment on. I thought I'd already done a review on one of these. Definitely automated ML. But what I normally should see is a list of my automated ML experiments below that. And it isn't there, which is really confusing me. The only one I have is the actual designer one that I've run earlier. Sorry, not the designer one, the notebook one. So let me just check in my data science machine learning space and go to my compute and clusters. Okay, wow. That is super odd. Okay. I definitely set that automated ML project off because I looked at the results of it. Let's have a look. Experiments, diabetes.
I've got a question.
Go ahead.
The chat. When do you contain the model and when do you not contain the model?
So when do we contain it? Or so if we want to keep the model, we can basically download that file. We can then, so you can see maybe in the assets section we have models. So if I want to keep the model, I can download the model. I can register essentially the model is what we're talking about here. So I register the model and then I can reuse that model. But if I go into the models at the moment, you'll notice that what we do have is no models because we haven't registered any models and they need to be registered here. Now to do that, we would go on to the create stage. We would give it a name and essentially the file, the pickle file could be uploaded here. So let me zoom in a little bit there. So if you have the model that's been provided to you, you could actually kind of upload that folder or file that contains that model and register that under either an automated ML, kind of one of these different kind of R or PySpark or kind of different like GBM, whatever might be the kind of specific framework. If you have that, but yeah, you kind of also tag it as well. And by tagging it, you can kind of easily find that. So I could tag it for a specific project or kind of naming convention that I might want to use. Because remember, I'm very good at naming conventions. So cancel on that. But that's where you go and register them. Now, once they're registered, if you go to experiment, actually use cancel on that. Go to one of the experiments. Let's go to this one here. Let's go into run number 9. So I don't think it's actually done the, but I can go and grab the results of this run and go and grab that, get the images, get the response of this. Let me go and go to the run ID. Okay, so where is it? We want it to go. Because this is normally where I wouldn't do it here. I'd actually go and let it run completely and then go and grab the project. Let's go to my experiment. Let's see if I have it here. It's not giving me what I'm expecting here. Okay, so there's the pickle file that I might want to use. So I can grab that. I can download that file. I can also just click on it, and you can see here that we kind of can't see it supported here. But basically, if I downloaded that file, I could then go to my model, and which I've just downloaded, go to models, go to create, go to the browse folder, and then go and grab the download folder and go to the modified and grab the very latest file in there, which will be the model. And we'll call this model 10. Okay, now that's pretty much all I need to do was kind of to give I'll give it a framework name, which is I don't know, AML. There we go. Version 1. Description. Oh, sorry. Remember, it needs to have no spaces in there. Cool. That's me now register that model. Now I can version that as well, so I can have that model with different versions, and later on I have the ability to also deploy that into either Azure Kubernetes or Azure Container Instance. Okay, so hopefully that answered that question. A lot more to do around that, but essentially that is kind of, you take a model from an experiment, you download it, you register that model, and then you can deploy that model from there. So if I wanted to just deploy this model 10, I do an ACI, and I'm going to enable authentication, and I shall just leave that as it is there. Let's turn that on. Don't need to do anything else there. Why do I need? I don't need that. Oh, I will need a script file, a scoring script, and a dependency file, which is a YAML environment file. So I will need those first to deploy it, because otherwise it won't know what packages and whatever else. So I need to go and create those script files as well. Then I could deploy it. So I won't be able to do that right now. Maybe another 10 minutes and you'll be able to do that. Okay, let's see what we are. We're pretty much out of time. Let's see if the automated ML did its job. So this is finished. This has been done completely. And if we go to our endpoints and refresh the endpoints on. Okay, so it looks like my AML is not refreshing correctly today. So there should be a real, unless it's not done it right. Yeah, let's have a quick look. Okay, so it looks like it has done most of the steps, but I think there's a couple more bits it hasn't done yet. But in terms of kind of overall, what we can do is go to our machine learning service, come down. You can see that these are all the different runs that have happened. These are the computes that we run in. Here's the tutorials. There's a lot of resources in the GitHub repository. Let's go to GitHub/Microsoft Reactors. Not only do they have all of the code, but they have, if I go into, say, for example, I think, is it this one? Wrong one. This one here. And come down to, which one was it? Okay, I've lost the, unfortunately, they did rearrange all of this, and it's like completely confused me as to where all of the assets are now. I think it's Learn Modules. Data Science Learn 1. what I'm looking for is the PowerPoint slides with all the slides on it. Our workshop resources. There we are. Okay. So we go into Data Science 1 down here, click on the Data Science resources. And here you'll have access to the workshop slides. So the learning path, workshop slides, workshop materials, some examples. So if you go into the slides, you essentially have the PowerPoint slides that are part of these projects. So that will help you understand the kind of position of where things are. I know we're pretty much out on time. I'm going to see if there's any questions outside of what we had already. Let's see. Let's go to our questions here. Any questions we haven't asked right now? Let's have a look.
I think there is a follow-up. So
Okay.
From Laura, is register the same as containing a model? So registering a model is containing a model. Is that just the same thing? Or?
So essentially, I think I need to clarify what the container is. So basically, a model is encapsulation of the code logic and the algorithm and all the code kind of that's being used to generate the kind of predictions and everything else in there. So when you deploy that model, you deploy it with a kind of environment file which says these are the packages, these are the kind of environment sizes, these are everything you need. So when you put it in a container, you can then call that container and reference that. So I would recommend that what you do is go and look at the machine learning service, go into the home page, come down to the tutorials down here, and you want to look at what this where's the one I want to do? Here's one here, which is what a machine learning model is when it's deployed. So how it kind of goes through the steps of creating those services and listing them, securing them. Essentially, if you go through and look at some of these tutorials, you'll find the answers that you need for creating those services, deploy those services, creating the resets, resources, deploying them, whatever you might need to do, it's going to be in here. I will say though that there is a AI 100, sorry, which one am I looking for? Machine learning, Microsoft Learn. Microsoft Learn. Coming to Microsoft Learn, it's learn.microsoft.com, and you want to go and let me go to just say explore learn roles, and you want to look at the data scientist role. And in here, it takes you through how to build machine learning models, how to do foundations of data science, how to things like data bricks, which we didn't even touch on, which is another great resource. But here's some great learning paths about kind of going through building your capabilities with machine learning. There's a large number of courses as well. So there's some instructor-led courses, which are going to be the DP100. It's the Designing and Implementing an Azure Data Science course. Okay, this is a 3-day instructor-led course. This is one of the courses I teach that takes you through introduction to machine learning, creating all the workspaces and tools, looking at Designer, looking at kind of training those pipelines and running those experiments, using data stores and data sets, doing all your compute, doing stuff like environments inside of data science, Visual Studio Code, computer, and on and on and on. So we cover a lot of, so what we did today in an hour, we basically do for 3 days in a lot more depth. And that prepares you for creating the, taking the exam. So there's a whole bunch of kind of resources here. So the course is called DP100. Let me put it into the chat window. Cursor, follow, please. There we go. Okay, so hopefully that gave you what I call a flavor. You shake that flavor over your steak, which is machine learning and data science, and enjoy. Have a couple of side dishes of chips and coleslaw, whatever else you like to go with that. But you need to spend some time carefully cutting that steak and chewing it very nicely, because that is taking it one bite at a time. So that is how I do data science. I learned it one step at a time, but I did 1,000 steps. And it got to the point where I can teach data science. I teach Python, machine learning, these data science. I teach PyTorch and TensorFlow and those technologies. And you probably can't see on the back shelf. Let me just zoom out a little bit. I have some books, very quick, thick books around kind of machine learning and data science technologies. And I'm constantly, every single day, learning about data science. So hopefully this is got you on that journey. You'll have a great journey if you do take that one. And thank you very much for bringing me on SQL Friday. It's been a pleasure to come and join you folks for this one.
Thank you, Neil. I mean, there is something that is blowing my mind. Microsoft is they're building services and they're using Python, which is not their product to begin with. They're using Linux, they're using Sparks. And could you imagine Microsoft doing this on the Steve Ballmer era?
No.
I mean, if you were close enough, he'd kill you if you mentioned Linux. And this is what they're doing now. And I think it's amazing because
it's a different Microsoft these days. It's a more open culture, a lot more forward thinking, not the competitive Microsoft that used to be, where they tried, like, I mean, you look at what they did many years ago. Is like they invested in kind of other companies a lot to kind of get them to kind of get the real estate, get the kind of the technologies, but even their competitors like Google and stuff like that, they've invested heavily in those. It's strange. It's like, you'd think, why would you do that? But they are very good, very open, and some of the resources they have now are just amazing compared to what it was a few years back even.
Yeah. So I want to thank you for coming to SQL Friday. I'm actually in the middle of a Brent Osler training class, so I'm going to go back to that one now.
Say hello to Brent for me.
Sure.
So I'm just going to put one last link into the chat window. Anyone who wants to learn about these technologies, like there's one I've got, which is an AI 100 preparation guide. I'm going to be doing videos. I only started this a couple of months back. I've got 800 subscribers right now, but there's other ones in here. I think I can find it. Where's my AI 100? I've got too many of these videos already. So AI 900, which is the Azure AI fundamentals, which is not specifically kind of data science, but it's kind of on the machine learning space. I'm going to have a number of machine learning specific data science related videos coming in the next few months, so keep your eye out. It's called Data Train as the channel, and excellent. So thank you very much. Pleasure to be here, and enjoy your course with Brent. I'm sure it'd be awesome. Yeah,
it has been so far. So I'm in the middle of mayhem. I have Michael in front of me, who's I'm in the kind of speaker's room where the coffee table is. My kids are behind me, but it's that's how I do SQL Friday. It's going to be casual wherever I am. So
I have to catch a few more of those. Yeah, I look forward to seeing some of the other sessions you run, and then come and join as attendee.
Yeah, I look forward to it.
Excellent.
So thanks everyone for joining. I'm going to stop the recording and go back dealing with learning some performance tuning stuff from Brent. Thanks, Neil.
Bye, everyone. See you later.
See you around.
Bye.